They discovered a shocking secret to revival hidden in ancient prayers. Few knew what truly happened that night in the quiet town of Bethel. Shadows loomed over the flickering oil lamps, casting haunting shapes on cracked stone walls. Whispers rippled through the air, echoing off the walls like distant cries for help. It was a night drenched in mystery, where the whispers spoke of miracles and the unexplainable. Deep in this ancient settlement, an old scroll was unearthed, buried under layers of dust and forgotten time. The parchment was brittle, its edges frayed like the hopes of those who had sought answers while kneeling in desperation. This scroll contained prayers, believed to have been inscribed by the faithful themselves. But these weren't ordinary prayers. They crackled with energy, alive with something almost tangible. Historians claim that it dated back to the time of Elijah, a prophet known for calling down fire from heaven. What secrets could have been buried alongside the remnants of the past? Joseph, a rugged man with wearied eyes, held the scroll gingerly. His heart raced. What if these words held the key to awakening the lifeless souls scattered through the streets? The townsfolk gathered, their faces a mix of skepticism and yearning. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the night, drawing everyone's gaze upward. A bolt of lightning illuminated the darkened sky, and in that fleeting moment, a figure appeared. Was it an angel? Or was it merely a trick of the mind, a fleeting mirage born of hope and desperation? The air grew heavy, filled with tension as they all froze, hearts pounding in unison. What of the stories whispered through generations? The tales of divine intervention and miracles that didn't just stir faith but set it ablaze. Yet, beneath those enticing stories lay questions that clawed at the edges of belief. Were these miracles truly granted, or mere illusions wrapped in the shrouds of the imagination? They felt an urging voices asking for affirmation or disbelief as curiosity mounted. Was this scroll a sacred relic, or just a faded testimony of times long gone? The townsfolk looked to Joseph, eyes wide with expectation. Could this be the moment they'd been waiting for? As he unrolled the scroll, a warm glow seeped from the ancient words, but one thing was clear: answers come at a price. Would they fully embrace the mysteries of revival or stumble back into their doubts? Their fates hung in the balance like the flickering flames around them, illuminated by possibilities yet to unfold. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the warm glow receded into the night, Joseph stood before the gathered townsfolk, scroll unfurled in trembling hands. The characters seemed to dance before his eyes, shimmering with a light that felt both inviting and intimidating, as if they bore witness to truths long obscured. With a deep breath, he began to decipher the ancient script, his voice steady yet reverberating with uncertainty. O Lord, hear the cries of your servants, for we seek your face in this desolate place. Each word spilled forth, rich with longing and faith, carrying the weight of generations who had turned to the heavens in their darkest hours. The crowd emerged from their initial shock, absorbing every syllable, and as if the gesture itself was a spell, the air began to thrum with anticipation. It was not just a recitation, it was an invocation of hope. Then, a gentle breeze stirred, swirling through the square, lifting the fringes of their garments and tousling their hair. It felt alive, a breath that had not circulated through Bethel's streets for far too long. Eyes widened in awe, hearts beat louder in harmony. Some began to whisper their own prayers, joining in collective desperation, as though the words were a bridge to the divine. Yet amidst the fervor, a shadow lingered at the corners of Joseph's mind. What if this only deepened their yearning without satisfying it? As he continued reading from the scroll, the prayers beseeched for rain to quench the parched earth, for truth to illuminate the darkened minds, and for a revival that transcended mere physical healing. Lord, bring forth your fire and consume our dross, he recited, and just then, the storm clouds overhead tumbled in response, churning with energy. Was it merely the weather, or something more? A collective gasp arose as they watched the sky flicker with more than just lightning. There were colors intermingling, a hint of hope reflecting their unvoiced desires back at them. But as the energy built, so did the uncertainty. There were murmurs, some felt it sacred, while others spoke of sacrilege. What if they were unworthy of this miracle, unfit to receive what the ancients had prayed for? Faces once bright with hope clouded with doubt, hands that had first clasped in prayer now trembled unwillingly. Joseph felt the weight of both their aspirations and fears. He glanced down at the scroll, searching for answers. Would praying these prayers root them deeper in faith or deepen their longing for something unattainable? He could sense a choice lay before them, one that danced tantalizingly close yet kept them at arm's length, and then, as if responding to his turmoil, the scroll glowed anew, illuminating a passage unknown to him. A whisper of urgency emanated from it. Was this divine counsel urging him to press on, or a test of their collective resolve? He opened his mouth to speak, to navigate this sacred crossroads, when a voice from the crowd arose, raw and earnest. What if we are not ready for what might come? What if we cannot endure the fire of revival? In that moment, Joseph realized that the path forward was fraught with profound implications, for revival demanded more than belief, it demanded transformation. Each heart there was a seed, waiting for the right moment to burst forth into something vibrant, yet rooted in the rich decay of doubt that preceded them. As the lightning flashed again, not all eyes held the glow of hope, some were dimmed by fear of change. What would be lost in the pursuit of what they sought? What if their past, with all its frailties, was what tethered them to their identities? In that heavy air, with the weight of the scroll pinned between his fingers, Joseph wondered, were they truly ready to embrace whatever revival might bring, or would fear keep them bound in their old ways, stuck forever in the shadows of their own making? As the shadows lengthened and the storm clouds swirled above, Joseph's heart raced with the gravity of the moment. The air felt charged, alive with potential, yet heavy with an undercurrent of dread. He looked around at the faces before him, each illuminated by the flickering light, revealing expressions of hope mixed with an unsettling apprehension. The voice of the crowd hung in the air like a brief pause at the end of a prayer, pregnant with possibility. Who among them had not wrestled with the fear of what revival might demand? To pursue the divine was to face transformation, to shed the skin of the past, the very skin that defined them, that wrapped them in familiarity. Joseph pondered inwardly, is the pain of change greater than the ache of the drought we endure? He clenched the scroll tightly, aware that in it lay truths entwined with ancient promises. What if, he wondered aloud, the revival we seek is not just a gaze toward the heavens, but a reckoning with our own hearts? The crowd shifted, whispers cascading through them, a chorus of anxious anticipation. Perhaps awakening would not be a gift bestowed upon them, but a measure of their willingness to confront their own hidden corners, to unearth secrets they might prefer to keep buried. As the wind picked up, carrying remnants of unspoken fears, a figure emerged from the back of the gathering. An elder, known for his wisdom and gentle spirit, stepped forward, cradling a small clay vessel. The crowd parted, revealing him as he approached Joseph, a quiet authority in his demeanor. With a gaze that pierced the layers of uncertainty, he began to speak. Joseph, he said, his voice steady yet gentle, in times of drought, it is not solely the land that thirsts. He lifted the vessel, its surface rough and unpolished, and with careful hands, he poured a little of its contents onto the ground where they stood. You see, just as this vessel was filled with the dust of the earth, our hearts too are filled with the remnants of our past. Each grain of sand that fell reminded Joseph of the burdens they carried, griefs unaddressed, hopes abandoned, guilt that choked the spirit like weeds choking a garden. The crowd watched in reverent silence as the elder continued, true revival requires more than prayer, it calls for excavation of the soul. What will you cleanse from these vessels of yours? What faith will you reclaim, and which fears will you confront? His piercing gaze moved over them as if peering inside one heart at a time, inviting them to reflect on their own walls that resisted the tide of transformation. Joseph felt a stirring within, a yearning to honor the truth spoken, yet trepidation pressed down upon him. Was everyone ready to confront what they had hidden away? The light that danced in the sky above seemed to rattle with expectation, yet clouds loomed, heavy with rain and unfulfilled promises. The crowd began murmuring. Some echoed words of caution while others felt the ember of resolve igniting. In that moment of shared introspection, Joseph caught glimpses of the raw vulnerability that lay beneath their skin, just waiting for acknowledgement. He remembered the stories of their forebears, their struggles, and the faith they epitomized. Could those stories breathe life into the weary fabric of their identities? Then, a thought flickered through his mind. If the storms befell them, perhaps they should welcome them. Perhaps revival called them to not merely endure the fire but to dance in it, to become something entirely new from the ashes. The murmurs grew louder, as if carried by the wind, reaching a feverish pitch. How do we prepare for what must emerge? In that sacred uncertainty lay the question that would guide them, lingering like the smell of rain in the air. Could they muster the courage to uncover what lay buried within, knowing that the very act of revelation might be their stepping stone into revival? What might they have to relinquish to gain everything they sought? As the murmurs began to ripple through the gathering, Joseph stood at the center of it all, feeling the weight of ancient prayers surrounding him like a shroud. Faces turned toward him, a tapestry of emotions woven tightly: fear, hope, anxiety, determination. The elders' words had laid bare an essential truth, and now they awaited guidance, as if the air itself held the promise of revelation. That he cleared his throat, feeling the urgency weaving through the night air. What if, he began, voice steady yet tinged with tremors of emotion, what if revival is not solely a cry for deliverance but a call to return to the ways of our ancestors? They spoke of prayer filled with fervor, laced with intention and honesty. When they turned their hearts to the divine, they laid their wounds bare, not just for healing, but for clarity. At the mention of ancestors, a ripple of recognition washed over the crowd. Their minds danced with the stories of those who had walked before them, men and women who had wandered through deserts, faced oppressive rulers, and clung to faith amid chaos. Each had a moment when revelation dawned, bringing them closer to understanding their place in the tapestry of creation. Recall their cries in the wilderness, their songs of lament, and the prayers whispered in despair. They invited the divine into their darkest moments. Could we not do the same? Silence settled, thick yet pregnant with expectation. It was as if time stood still, allowing each soul to dig deep into the echoes of a shared history, to confront the truth of their past and the longing of their hearts. Joseph could sense the winds changing, swirling above them, the storm brewing, hinting at both challenge and transformation, yet doubt lingered like shadows at the periphery of their resolve. But what if our prayers go unanswered? Someone called out, trembling with a mix of concern and yearning, an echo of a deeper fear shared amongst the gathering. Joseph recognized this sentiment well. He too had questioned the purpose behind prayers that seemed to rise only to fall upon deaf ears. Have our ancestors not taught us, Joseph replied, that unanswered prayer is often the birthplace of revelation? When we voice our darkest fears and frustrations, we invite God to reveal a truth we may not envision. Each grain of sand upon which we stand is testimony to those who persisted despite the silence. They did not relent, they pressed on, and herein lies a lesson for us. The elder nodded solemnly, his eyes fixed on Joseph. In times of famine, our prayers often reflect harvests still pending. Each effort to reconnect with the divine births a new understanding of faith, one that stretches beyond mere words. It requires us to become like those ancient vessels, crafted, yet cracked, holding the beauty of imperfection. Joseph felt a spark igniting within him, a courage kindled by the elder's insight. What if we gather the stories of our lives? What if we recount not just our victories but our struggles, our heartaches? What if we share those prayers, both the jubilant and the mournful, and in doing so, create a collective voice that shatters the silence of this drought? The crowd began to stir, heads nodding as this idea took root. They contemplated the act of coming together, a community bravely bringing forth their burdens. They mused on the idea that perhaps the act of sharing their hidden sorrows and joys could unlock something greater than any individual plea for help, a communal revival that echoed through time, touching the divine in ways that transcended their understanding. Yet as they prepared to embrace this path, Joseph felt the gravity of the moment weigh heavily upon him. Could they unravel the threads of their past without fear? Would confessions and revelations of hidden sorrows foster unity, or would they risk rekindling old wounds? Above them, the clouds rolled and crackled, electric with potential as if the heavens themselves echoed their cascading fears. Joseph raised his face toward the changing sky, listening for the whispers of answers within the thunderous silence. What sacred truths lie buried beneath the layers of pain, yearning for exposure and renewal? And would they find the strength to confront not only the divine but themselves on this journey toward revival? As the night deepened and stars flickered like distant promises, the air hummed with an unspoken anticipation. The people gathered around Joseph, gripped by a collective sense of purpose and vulnerability. It was a moment steeped in holy tension, a moment ripe for the opening of hearts and the unearthing of the past. Let us speak of the ancient prayers, Joseph urged, drawing closer to the assembly. What if we listened to the very fabric of their words? The cries of our ancestors were not always structured, sometimes they were raw, messy, and unadorned. They were born from the wellspring of human experience, echoing desperation, longing, and a quest for understanding. A woman stepped forward, her voice quivering yet strong. My grandmother told me tales of her struggles during the occupation. She prayed not with certainty, but with fierce hope, she recounted. Yet I've often felt the weight of her silence, the times when even her heart cried out but her mouth could not utter a sound. Did her silence mean her prayers carried less weight? Or were they the very prayers that reached the heavens? Joseph nodded thoughtfully. This is the crux of our journey. A prayer unspoken still resonates within the divine. Perhaps the absence of words does not imply lack of faith, but rather a deeper longing for understanding beyond the confines of our comprehension. We must retrieve and express those unvoiced prayers. What burdens do we carry that have yet to find their way into the light? Another voice arose, a man's trembling yet determined. I have kept my grief buried. My son was taken from me in a fierce storm, and for years, I have not dared to speak the pain of that loss. What if my silence has only severed my connection to the divine? What if I were to name this sorrow? Would it draw me nearer to God or further away? His confession hung in the air, thick with emotion and vulnerability. Joseph felt the weight of those words envelop the gathering and recognized in their stillness that this was no small revelation. The threads of their personal stories were weaving together, forging a bond not just to one another but to the sacred itself. Pain has the power to silence us but also to unite us, Joseph said firmly. By sharing, we illuminate the darkness within ourselves and invite the light of the divine to seep in. Let us not hold on to our prayers alone but breathe life into them with community. As more joined in, sharing their stories of anguish, joy, and doubt, a palpable change began to radiate among them. Each revelation became a thread, spiraling into a woven tapestry of collective struggle and triumph. The stories, once whispered in isolation, now surged forth with renewed vigor, a symphony of voices reaching skyward, and yet, amidst their catharsis, Joseph felt a stirring in his spirit. What if there lies a mystery within our shared vulnerabilities? What if the divine remains concealed until we dare to uncover the depths of our souls? His question drifted into the night, a gently spinning wheel of introspection. What truth might be revealed if they undertook the courage to delve deeper into their collective past? Could their raw, unfiltered expressions of faith uncover pathways to understanding and healing that they had long believed to be lost? Would their willingness to confront their inner turmoil unlock greater revelations from the divine? As the gathering slowly began to dissolve, a simmering sense of urgency hung in the air. They had tasted the essence of revival, yet the path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty. With each step taken, how could they ensure their fragile revelations would stand resilient, drawing them closer to understanding their connection with the divine? As the stars blinked down upon them, cast in mystery and wonder, a single, resonant question lingered. What hidden truths awaited their embrace beneath the weight of their combined stories, waiting to be uncovered in the light of shared suffering and joy? As dawn broke with gentle rays of light brushing against the horizon, Joseph stood among the remnants of last night's gathering. The air was fresher now, and the memories of stories shared still echoed in his mind. An intoxicating mixture of hope and trepidation filled him. What lay ahead? Beyond the reflections of their unveiled prayers, he wandered towards the gathering place of the ancients, a hollow tree, its roots sprawling like the stories of their forefathers, deep, intertwining, and unshakable. Here, he had often come to reflect, to seek guidance, and now to pray anew. Kneeling before the gnarled roots, Joseph closed his eyes and drew in the sense of earth and dew as he recalled the stories shared last night. Words resonated within him, urging him to seek understanding deeper than he had explored before. Suddenly, a whisper stirred through the leaves, causing Joseph to lift his gaze. An elder approached, her presence radiating wisdom, as if she had absorbed the words of time and woven them into her essence. "Joseph," she spoke softly, her voice like a caress of warmth, "the prayers of the past hold secrets we cannot ignore. They are not mere remembrances, they are keys to the very heart of our existence." Intrigued, Joseph prompted, "What secrets do you speak of, wise one?" "Last night, we embraced our vulnerabilities, but I sense there is more we are yet to uncover." She sat beside him, her eyes reflecting years of witnessing humanity's struggles and triumphs. "Within every prayer lies a story, and within every story is a thread that connects us to the divine. The ancients spoke of a sacred truth that often eludes us: prayers are not just cries of the heart, they are conversations with the essence of creation. They call us to listen more than to speak. What if we were to listen deeply?" Joseph pondered aloud. "What if we revered not only the sound of our own prayers but the silence that follows?" The elder smiled knowingly. "Precisely, dear Joseph. In that silence resides the divine. Many of our ancestors understood that to truly revive the spirit, one must attune themselves to the stillness, the moments between sounds. The shock of revival you seek is not found solely in the noise of our confessions, but in the quiet spaces where our souls can connect to the whisperings of God." Her words settled into the depths of Joseph's heart, illuminating paths previously unseen. "But how do we guide our people to this understanding? Many are burdened, still grappling with the weight of their sorrow and shame. They may not recognize the power of the unspoken." "Invite them to pause," she replied. "Encourage them to embrace the silence alongside their voices. Tell them the tales of their own deep heartbeats, for within every heartbeat is the pulse of the divine love reaching back." Joseph's thoughts turned to the man who spoke of his son, and the woman who mourned in silence, a treasure chest of stories seeking release. Will they see beyond their pain and fear? Can they trust in the quiet enough to find solace? The elder nodded, her gaze unwavering. To traverse beyond fear, they must be reminded that vulnerability begets strength. Only through acknowledging their deepest sorrows in a communal hush will they find courage to rise anew. Remember, the divine dwells in the unresolved, searching, reaching, waiting for us to engage. As the sun rose higher, bathing them in golden light, Joseph felt an electric pulse of understanding merge within him. There, entwined with each grain of truth unearthed, lay a sacred path. The call for revival was not merely about collective burdens lifted but a harmonious embrace of the silence wherein true connection thrived. Renewed with purpose, Joseph stood and clasped the elder's hand. "Thank you, wise one. I sense our journey is only beginning. The ancient prayers await our embrace, their echoes beckon us to unravel the depths of our faith." As they returned towards the village, Joseph felt a sense of expectancy surge within him, countless possibilities unfurling like the bright petals of a flower caressed by morning dew. He could imagine the faces of his people, gathering once more to explore the depths of their stories, and within every step forward, a curious question lingered in his heart: what revelations of sacred silence might unlock as they journeyed together toward a more profound communion with the divine. As the sun continued its ascent, illuminating the village with its warm embrace, Joseph felt a palpable excitement beneath his skin. The air seemed to thrum with possibility, as if nature herself conspired to unveil the mysteries that lingered just beyond the veil of his understanding. With each step back to the village, he considered how the teachings of the elder might reshape his community's approach to healing and connection. The villagers began to gather at the foot of the great tree, where the whispers of the ancients resided. A mix of familiar faces and weary hearts flitted before him, their eyes glimmering with the weight of unvoiced burdens. Joseph noticed the steadfast gaze of Miriam, the widow who had endured the depths of grief, alongside Benjamin, the farmer whose crop failures had left him despondent. Each of them carried threads of sorrow that wove into the collective tapestry of their lives. "Friends." Joseph called out, his voice finding strength in the stillness that had settled upon the gathering. With the elder's wisdom echoing in his mind, he felt the need to usher in a new era revelation birthed from a deeper understanding of their communal prayers. We stand at the threshold of something profound today. It is time we embrace the silence as much as we embrace our voices. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd, eyes darting to one another as if deciphering the meaning of his words. Joe continued, his heart pounding with the importance of the message he was about to share. In our prayers, there exists not just supplication but also an invitation to listen. What we felt last night was merely the surface of a deeper river of divine conversation that has been ongoing for centuries. That he stepped closer to Miriam, who held the slightest hint of skepticism in her furrowed brow. Miriam, he began, his voice gentle yet firm, I know the depths of your sorrow. But imagine what might happen if, even in that sorrow, you allowed yourself to sit in silence just for a moment. What if, in the stillness, you heard the heartbeat of something greater than our pain? Her gaze softened, and Joseph's heart swelled with hope as the words took root, inspiring curiosity and reflection among the villagers. He turned to the others, his soul ignited with purpose. To ask for healing, to long for revival, we must first acknowledge the beauty in our quiet and trust that we are not alone in our suffering. For God breathes in those moments of silence. With newfound courage, the villagers started to settle beneath the tree. Each one found their place within the circle they formed, hearts and minds still. Joseph closed his eyes, urging them to do the same, and called forth the light they each carried within. Let this be a sacred space, he murmured. A sanctuary where we honor not just our voices but also the echoes of our soul-stirring silence. The stillness wrapped around them like a warm cocoon, enveloping their hearts with a shared vulnerability. An interesting sensation began to weave through the air, the pulse of unity, the resonance of souls seeking communion and solace. How often had they carried their burdens alone, their cries drowning out the quiet wonder waiting to be heard? Minutes passed, or perhaps even hours, wrapped in the fabric of time. Joseph surrendered to the serenity of the moment, feeling the reverberations of ancient prayers as they settled within him. He could sense the divine stirring among them, igniting curiosity and awakening a spark of hope that had long been buried. Then, slowly, a faint sound emerged, a soft weeping from Miriam, flowing like a stream seeking its course. Joseph opened his eyes to see her tears glisten, reflecting both pain and release. The others turned toward her, witnessing her vulnerability, realizing perhaps for the first time that sharing one's sorrow could lead to shared healing. As the weeping became a collective gasp, others began to speak slowly, at first, hesitant but encouraged by the warmth enveloping them. Benjamin shared the anguish of the earth's betrayal, but underneath it lay a yearning to reconnect with the land. One by one, voices rose, weaving through the silence, revealing the colors of their experiences, and with it unraveling the threads of fear that had bound them. Yet, as they spoke, Joseph could sense an unseen presence, a heartbeat that pulsed through their confessions, tying them in ways they had rarely fathomed. He felt the weight of a greater truth hanging in the air, that the silence, although pregnant with anticipation, was also marred by shadows, neglected stories waiting to be unearthed. Emboldened by the raw honesty filling the space, Joseph reflected on an unsettling reality. What if, he thought, in our quest for recovery and revival, we continue to overlook the sacred stillness? How many voices, how many truths are silent? As the sun began its slow descent, sending rays streaming through the branches, Joseph couldn't shake the question that lingered in the air, a mystery left unresolved, echoing in the hearts of the congregation. What untold stories lie just beneath the surface of our silence, waiting to be heard? The twilight deepened, casting shadows among the gathered villagers, a veil of mystery cloaking the intimate space under the great tree. Joseph sensed the palpable shift in the atmosphere, a collection of hearts that, through shared vulnerability, began to resonate with something beyond their understanding. With each voice offering a glimpse of their sorrow, a web of connection expanded, and so too, the collective yearning grew to uncover the hidden truths woven into their sacred silence. Facing them, Joseph's mind wandered to the elders' tale of ancient prayers, the profound revelations mankind had chronicled, echoing through time to guide each generation. But what if there was something more? Was there a thread of knowledge, perhaps forgotten, that could bind their communal suffering to a greater narrative? He pondered over the unsettling thought, how many ancient secrets lay unraveled, waiting for a willing heart to seek their meaning. In the midst of this sacred moment, Miriam raised her trembling hand, catching the attention of the group once more. Her voice, still hoarse from sobs, trembled with the weight of her reflection. When I lost my husband, grief wrapped around my heart like a chain. I prayed but perhaps I forgot to listen, she confessed, her eyes now bright with possibility. It was as if my sorrow founded a wall, blocking the light of understanding. Joseph moved closer, sensing the profound energy flowing through her words. What if, Miriam, there is a teaching hidden among our ancestors? A secret embedded in the very fabric of our prayers for healing, not just of the body, but of the spirit. Intrigued, the villagers leaned in closer, curiosity igniting as Miriam continued. In my darkest moments, I sought solace in forgotten texts of our elders that spoke of a sacred language, a language of the heart, woven with intention and presence. Could our silence be that deeper language? The crowd stirred, recognizing the duality of their silence and their cries. Each soul carried unique burdens, yet this shared experience led them to a pivotal realization. The view of their cries as mere pleas could shift towards an inquiry for understanding beyond words. Joseph's heart raced, the questions pulsating within him. What words did they speak? What truths will they whisper if we uncover and embody this language of the heart? The essence of their gathering became an intimate exploration of articulating pain through a sacred medium they had overlooked. As the last rays of sunlight danced upon the leaves, a soft yet fierce presence seemed to envelop them. Benjamin, emboldened by Miriam's admission, stepped forward, his traditionally stoic form now a canvas of exposed emotion. We have resisted, fearing that to revisit our stories would drown us. But what if to truly revive our spirits, we must pour out these stories into the air, allowing others to breathe life into them? A chorus of agreement rose, heartbeats quickening, excitement shimmering within their collective breaths. The group began to share their echoes, intertwining with wisdom from generations past. It was a revelation, an invocation that spun through time, igniting the long-dormant embers of healing within them. Yet, in the midst of this gathering, Joseph felt a twinge of apprehension. He considered how vulnerable their souls were to the revelations that remained unexamined, lurking in the shadows. Darkness, after all, often conceals truths that when unearthed could either heal or wound deeply. He felt the weightiness of his next inquiry, one more significant than any other they had dared to ask before. Are we prepared to embrace all that lies hidden within, even the shadows that may challenge our revival? The air thickened with anticipation, each villager caught in an invisible web of connection, threading their untold stories and hopes against the backdrop of their shared silence. What depths would they explore if they dared to voice the entirety of their experiences, the joy, the sorrow, the shadows lurking at the edges of their lives? As night claimed the village and the stars emerged one by one in resplendent silence, the group settled back into their woven circle. This was not merely a time of storytelling, it was a confrontation with the essence of their humanity, a journey into the heart of their existence where healing began. Would they emerge renewed from these foundations of trust? Or might they discover deeper fissures that required even more light and love to mend? The questions lingered like stars in the night sky, beautiful, unsettling, yet full of promise. What will be unveiled once we dare to articulate our unspoken fears, and how might it illuminate the path to our revival? As the villagers nestled under the great tree, the night air grew heavy with a longing that felt almost palpable. Each whisper and sigh danced through the shadows, mingling with the scent of earth and the coolness of the evening breeze. Joseph watched them, feeling the anticipation in the way they shifted, huddled closer as if to shield their vulnerabilities from the naked night. There was something mystical unfolding, a shift that transcended the mere exchange of words. That I cannot help but wonder, he began, his voice steady yet hushed, if ancient prayers indeed concealed more than we realize. What if these sacred words were alive, waiting to be reawakened within us? He paused, allowing his invitation to linger. The flickering lanterns casting warm glows seemed to nod in agreement, urging the villagers to delve deeper. Miriam, emboldened by the support around her, spoke again with fervor. I recall a passage that speaks of the heart being the altar for our prayers, a vessel where divinity and humanity meet. What if we dedicated ourselves to understanding that connection more profoundly? The villagers exchanged glances, a spark igniting in their eyes as the reverberation of her words settled within them. The notion that the heart could be both a sanctuary and a bridge unsettled some, yet it intrigued many others. Yes. exclaimed Benjamin, his voice bubbling with newfound passion. Our stories, when shared, could lift us to the holy ground of understanding. Each prayer we weave might become a thread in the tapestry of our collective strength, but as they grew bolder, a gnawing discomfort lingered within Joseph's spirit, unresolved yet beckoning to be addressed. If our hearts hold such power, he cautioned gently, must we also not confront the darkness residing therein? What if it is those very shadows that inhibit our revival? Can we separate our pain from the healing it seeks to elicit? A tension rippled through the group, the tension of doubt meeting the fire of resolve. The night deepened around them, and for a moment, silence thickened the air. Then, one brave soul, Leah, her eyes reflecting flickering light, dared to voice the quietest thought among them. What if our fears and shadows are not merely burdens to bear, but keys to unlock the wisdom needed for our revival? Sensing the weight of her insight, Joseph felt a swell of understanding. Indeed, Leah. Perhaps our shadows are teachers, he mused, but teachers whose insights are clothed in discomfort. Can we trust that the unraveling of our stories may guide us toward greater clarity? As they began to discuss this perspective, the stars above shone down with a radiance unlike any before, as though the universe itself listened intently to their every word. They remembered the ancient prayer of unity spoken by their forebears, gathered in diverse strands, we form one tapestry. Together, we weave light from darkness, harmony from dissonance. The shared realization began to ripple among them, igniting the courage to unearth the truths held fast by their experiences. Would they indeed find the revival they hoped for, or might they unveil afflictions that would demand more than they were prepared to give? Children of the village, previously silent, edged closer, drawn by the energy pooling around the fire of discussion. What are shadows but a part of us? One young boy questioned, his innocence cutting through any pretense. Are they not just shapes waiting to be understood? With this question, the night seemed to exhale a reminder that every flicker of light has a shadow, dancing together in an eternal embrace. Joseph knew that their journey had only just begun, a quest for understanding and acceptance that would intertwine their grief, hope, and faith like threads in a tapestry yet to be woven. Are we prepared, he pondered aloud, to explore this myriad of emotions fully? To challenge our fears, our stories, and embrace both light and dark so we may emerge transformed? What lessons lie ahead in the shadows that will teach us not only about ourselves but also about the sacred bond we share? In this fragile moment, as they leaned into one another, the questions spiraled into the universe, lingering like a melody of uncertainty and promise, echoing into the night. What must they uncover within and among each other that would lead them toward a true revival, and what hidden depths still awaited their courageous exploration? The dawn broke over Bethel, casting delicate fingers of light across the village, illuminating the faces of those who had gathered beneath the old tree. The previous night had been a rebirth of sorts, a tapestry of revelations and shared confessions stitched together by the threads of vulnerability. As the villagers emerged from their contemplations, they carried within them the beginnings of transformation, their hearts swelling with anticipation for what was next. Joseph stood at the forefront, his spirit aflame with purpose. With each ray of sunlight touching the earth, he felt the urgency of their journey into revival. They had dared to confront their shadows, the fears, heartbreaks, and buried sorrows, and through shared silence and community, they had formed a bond that transcended mere words. In that sacred trust, something extraordinary began to take root. The essence of the ancient prayers lingered in the air, buoying their spirits with the promise of change. As Joseph shared, "Friends, we have taken care to unearth our stories and reveal our vulnerabilities. But what if the true miracle lies not just in the sharing but in the embracing of what remains unspoken?" A hush fell over the gathering. The gravity of Joseph's words settled onto their hearts, a collective yearning to understand the deeper layers of their existence. Miriam looked up at him, her expression a blend of curiosity and introspection. "What do you mean by embracing the unspoken?" she asked gently, cresting the dawn with the fragility of hope. Joseph took a deep breath, recalling the weight of their confessions and the moments when silence spoke louder than words. Within the layers of our experiences lies a sacred truth. Often, our fears hide the very paths toward healing that we seek. Can we acknowledge that which is hard to articulate, the grief that lingers, the loneliness felt in crowded places, or the shame nestled within triumphs? In recognizing these secrets, we can find healing that he gestured to the sunlight spilling onto the grass, illuminating the world around them. Much like light reveals what was once hidden, so too does vulnerability. We must delve deeper together and allow all aspects of our hearts to weave themselves into the fabric of our community. Inspired murmurs passed through the villagers. They craned their necks, eyes sparkling with understanding, grasping the essence of Joseph's invitation. They were now called to explore not only the sunshine of their stories but also the shadows that cradled their truths. It was a risk, but the allure of potential revival coaxed their courage, awakening a readiness to face what lay ahead. As they shared their determined resolve, an unexpected silence enveloped the group. A moment of stillness rippled through the air, thick with expectancy, when suddenly, the wind around them surged, a gentle breeze carrying with it the scent of rain and earth, wrapping around their gathering like a warm embrace. It felt like a blessing from above, a shift in the atmosphere that hinted at something miraculous stirring. With sacred reverence, they turned their eyes to the sky, now roiling with clouds, dark and serene, a backdrop that spoke of change. Joseph offered a silent prayer to honor the unfolding, feeling the pulse of creation quicken around them. Let us welcome what this night may bring and trust that light will emerge, even from the shadows, he implored. As they took in the spectacle, reality pulsed with possibility. In this moment of collective breath, they intuitively found their places in an unbroken circle, each one feeling the sacred intimacy of shared vicinity. They closed their eyes and eased into a solemn silence, an echo of those who came before them. It was a silence pregnant with intention, a stillness that would act as the cradle of their dreams, fears, and hopes. Time slipped away, and mystical visions began weaving through their minds, scenes of ancestral glory and struggle, of gatherings in discord and unity, of prayers raised in both triumph and despair. Each vision urged them to confront the entirety of their heritage, to not only speak their truth but also to listen to the pulse of the wisdom that lingered within the sacred silence of their hearts. It was Miriam who first opened her eyes, her voice a tender whisper that broke through the stillness like a sacred incantation. I remember my grandmother spoke of her grandmother, who once sat under a great oak. She claimed it was said that when gathered in silence, if one could listen long enough, the spirits of the ancestors would guide them. As the words unfurled in the air, Joseph's heart swelled. Let us be those who listen. Let us be a bridge between their eternal echoes and our very existence. What if we called on our ancestors right now, reaching for their wisdom? A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd, the air humming with anticipation. Once more, they opened their hearts and minds to the stories of generations past. With reverence, they called forth the voices of their forebears, inviting forth the guidance intertwined in the very fabric of their identity. In that sacred exchange, something surged within them, a rare awareness blossoming that pointed toward possibilities yet unseen. Will you share with us the hidden truths your hearts discovered? Joseph asked, a gentle entreaty urging them to take the leap. In response, Miriam stood resolute and shared her secret fears of vulnerability, the shame wrapped around her grief, and the healing she craved through reconnection. Each soul began to speak, textiles woven with threads of accountability, commitment, and understanding. With every truth voiced, the clouds began to dance and the rains gently began to fall, a baptism for the land, but also a sealing of their delicate revelations. It was healing and awakening, a reminder of the fragility and strength of life. As the rain fell, it washed over the village, mingling with the laughter and cries of joy that erupted amongst them, intertwining sorrow and relief into something whole. In that sacred storm, they felt reborn, a revival drenched in the essence of shared human experience. No longer separated by fear or shame, but entwined in mutual growth and spiritual expansion. Through laughter and tears, they recommitted to acknowledging both the light and dark, understanding that the journey of revival is not solely about being lifted from struggle but finding meaning and unity in their collective narratives. From this moment onward, they would wear their vulnerabilities like badges of honor, remembering the power inherent in their unity. As the sun broke through the clouds and the world around them reflected the beauty of transformation, Joseph raised his arms to the heavens, and the village joined him, a symphony of voices intertwining in a harmonious communion of gratitude. May we become the echoes of our ancestors, shifting shadows into light, doubt into faith, and isolation into love. For in each of us lies a miracle waiting to unfold, a revival that transforms the very fabric of who we are as one. As they stood together, drenched in rain and possibility, it was clear every prayer, spoken or unspoken, revitalized in the moments of confrontation and embrace, was a step into the awe of life. A realization took root in their hearts, whispering eternally, revival is not a destination but a journey bound by reflection, connection, and love.